I want to talk with you today about something that I call sloppy thinking. We're talking today about the danger in sloppy thinking. Okay. One of the most insidious patterns that you have to watch out for as you navigate your career and, dare I say, your life is sloppy thinking. And we've all been there. Okay. So you set a big goal. Okay. You set a big goal that really excites and energizes you. Maybe you tell yourself, you know what? I've just been laid off. I was a vice president. And so now I'm going to go out and land a senior vice president role. Okay. Because, I've been operating at that level anyway. I've been operating at SVP. And so I'm going to go out, make it official, and land that title. Okay. And so you have this clarity. It's palpable. You can taste it. You can feel it. You're energized. You're excited. And then as you begin to pursue this goal, something unpleasant happens. Okay. So let's say that you decide to pursue this goal, you reach out to your network and you start to talk to people in your network about this goal that you have to be SVP. And you're getting mixed signals. Okay. Let's say that one person that you are in a connect call with says to you, well, SVP roles are really scarce right now. Most companies are flattening their organization, they're getting rid of that title. And so you might want to just consider a VP at an expanded scope or an expanded role. Okay. And so you think, okay, well, that's interesting. And then the next day you talk to a recruiter and you tell the recruiter the same thing. You want to be SVP. You even give them your pay band or your range that you're interested in for comp. And the recruiter, gasps like, wow, that is outside of the market. That's outside of the range right now. We're not seeing that number. And in fact, the recruiter is quoting numbers that are less than what you made in your most recent role before you got laid off. Okay. What do you think in that moment? Be honest. Maybe you've been there before. Whatever you think is really, really important. Okay. Because most people are unfortunately very sloppy in their thinking. And I use the word sloppy very intentionally because that's really what it is. Okay. So let's unpack this. What would most people think in that scenario? And I actually like to imagine this as you standing on the fifth floor of a building and due to the sloppy thinking, spiraling your way all the way down past the basement into the foundation of the building. Okay. So I'm going to illustrate for you here with this example what this could look like. And I do this, listen, I teach what I know. Okay. So I'm not talking to you from a pedestal. I'm talking to you as somebody who navigates this every single day myself. All right. But I know that this is so surmountable. Okay. I'm going to give you an example, a live example of what this can look like when, again, you've set a big goal. You want to be senior vice president. You want to make more money than you made in your prior role. You've been operating at the SVP level anyway. And then you set about this goal and you're getting unpleasant reactions, let's say. Okay. So here's what this could look like. So imagine again that you're standing on that fifth floor, and that could sound something like, well, all right, so SVP roles are scarce. Okay, well, maybe the market's just tighter than I thought. And well, maybe recruiters think my comp is too high. I might be overvaluing myself. Maybe I'll just knock that number down a little bit. Okay, so that's you standing at the fifth floor. And then almost immediately, you go to the fourth floor. Here's what that sounds like. Well, what if I was never really an SVP? What if I was never really operating at that level? Maybe I just got really lucky in my last role, right? Maybe I've been overestimating myself this whole time. Maybe that's why I'm not hearing back from anyone. Maybe that's why I didn't land the role. Maybe that's why I didn't land that interview, right? So here you are on the fourth floor. You've gone from excitement about this SVP role. Fifth floor, you said, well, maybe it's a little scarce. Maybe it's not as prevalent as I thought. And maybe I'll just move my number a little bit. Now you're going into, well, what if I was never really an SVP? What if I was just lucky? What if I just lucked out with that one project? What if I can't do it again? Right? And then automatically you go to the third floor. Okay, here's what that can sound like. Well, yeah, this kind of feels familiar. Remember that time I went for that stretch role and I didn't get it? Matter of fact, I haven't really gotten the last few roles I've gone for, the last few stretch assignments, the last few stretch roles, the last few, interviews I've applied, I've gone after. I haven't really gotten them, right? Remember that project I did that failed, right? Maybe this is just who I am. Man, this happens to me all the time. I reach high and then I just fall back down. Now, these are not words that you're saying. These are automatic thoughts that are firing in nanoseconds. Okay. And you see, as I slow it down and explain it, you might say, wow. But when it's happening to you, when you are in it, you can't really see it because it's so automatic. It's so quick. Okay. It sounds like common sense. You don't even know anything's happening, but you are spiraling. Okay. You've gone from the fifth floor, which really wasn't the highest floor to begin with, but that's where you were. You went to the fourth floor, then the third. Let's keep going. Okay. In a few seconds, you're on the second floor. The second floor sounds like, who am I to even think I could be SVP in this market? You know, everybody else who's SVP has been in the industry for 35 years, right? Everybody else who's SVP looks different from me. You know, they have more expertise. They have this credential, they have this degree, they've done XYZ ABC, and I haven't. Who am I to even think I can do this? Right? No one I know personally, none of my friends, no one in my family is doing this. The other person I see who's doing this, well, she's so much better than me. She went to Harvard, right? So, you know, who am I to think that I could do this? This is reserved for XYZ ABC kind of person. The VP level was farther than I ever thought I would get, right? There are people way more qualified than me. I'm already behind. That's what the second floor sounds like. As if that's not low enough, you keep going. You keep going. Because guess what? It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop itself. The momentum's there already. Inertia. It's going to keep going. A body in rest and a body in motion, right? It's in motion. It's going. So now you go from the second floor to the first. Okay. Here's what the first sounds like. What if I don't land anything at this level? What if I have to take something much lower? I mean, what if I can't even land VP? I was VP before, but what if I now have to go all the way to director or even senior manager? That other person that I know had to, you know, take a demotion. The other person over there took a demotion. That C-suite leader can't find another C-suite role. They just took a VP level role. So if C-suite leaders are landing VP roles and I'm a VP, maybe I'm going to need to demote myself, right? What if this drags on for months? What if I'm still here at the end of the year and it's been 9 months and I haven't landed anything, right? Maybe this will drag on because I'm aiming too high. So if I lower the goal, then I can land something faster. That's the first floor. Oh no, but it gets worse. It gets worse. We're not stopping at the first. We keep going to the basement. We keep going to the basement. Okay. What if I take something lower and I can't recover? What if I make the wrong move and I'm screwed completely? Like I've just, you know, decimated my career. What if I take the wrong job, the wrong opportunity, the wrong level, and I just can't ever come back from that? I can't ever come back from that. It's the wrong move for all time. And then you keep going because you got to go all the way to the foundation. You get to the foundation of the building, and that sounds like, what if I've completely misjudged my whole career? Okay. What if I'm not even who I thought I was? What if I end up in a really bad situation? What if I burn through all my savings? What if this goes on for a year or two and I really don't ever find anything? And then I burn through all my savings and I end up with no money and then I'm homeless and then I'm on someone's couch. Like it just keeps going. Right now you're all the way in the foundation. So this is what, you know, this can look like. You start at a certain point where you're feeling pretty good about yourself. And by the time this is all said and done, you feel like nothing. You feel like nothing you've ever done has worked. Nothing you're ever going to do is going to work, right? Everything's against you. Everyone's out to get you. You're not qualified. You're not good enough. All of your opportunities have just been based on luck. You just happened to be in the right place at the right time and someone just happened to put you on, but it really wasn't you. And so now that you're going to have to make this happen, you really can't because you never had it to begin with. And this is what your chatter, your self-chatter, your self-talk sounds like. And again, you never say it out loud. And again, when people ask you, oh, I want to be SVP, oh, I'm pursuing my role of blah, 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 you're saying all the right things. So everyone thinks, great. But deep down, this is what's happening. This is what you're thinking. And can you see how rapidly, how quickly the descent is? It's not over years. It's literally 5 minutes ago, you were at the fifth floor, and before you blinked, now you're all the way at the foundation. Okay. And I like the analogy of foundation, or the metaphor rather of foundation, because in a sense, we've arrived at the foundation of you. This is the foundation, not just in terms of this metaphorical building, but your foundation. We have arrived at your foundation, your identity, your core beliefs, your deepest fears, your deepest triggers, the version of you, the little you that's been running the show, right? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The you behind the curtain that's been running the show while you have appeared on LinkedIn and, in your role as someone who's got it together and someone who's, very well accomplished. There's still that little you that doesn't feel good enough. And that's who's been running the show all along. And now you are confronted with that person. That person is staring you in the face. And that person says, what if you can't do this? What if you're not good enough? What if you're not qualified? You have arrived at your own core foundation, the core beliefs, the core thought patterns that you've had, right? It's not the first time you've thought those thoughts. If you're being honest with yourself, it's not the first time, right? Every time you've arrived at a growth edge, you have thought the same thing. So this is a familiar pattern for you. So again, don't think of this as just the foundation of the building. Think of this as what's on the inside, the foundation of who you are. And, like I said, I still deal with this. We are all, in a way, susceptible to this. It's really human nature. It's the way our brains are designed. Our brains are designed for survival. Our brains are designed to keep us safe, to keep us comfortable, to scan threats and scan for risks and watch out. And, then it's not scanning for risks and scanning for threats are not the same thing as maximizing your opportunities and driving for success. Those are actually two different behavior patterns, right? And so at your core, at your base, your brain is trying to keep you protected. It doesn't want you to look stupid. It doesn't want you to look foolish. So this is its mechanism. This is your physiological mechanism to keep you protected. But you can see that has very little to do with achieving a big and energizing and exciting goal like you set in the very beginning. That's not the same thing. Okay? So we're all susceptible to this. This is not about beating yourself up or judging yourself too harshly. It's just being aware. It's knowing, okay, well, this is why this is happening. This is why I've had these thoughts. So here's what you do about it. Okay, here's what you do about it. I think most people think that the goal is to then catch themselves when they're at that fourth floor. So I'm at the fifth floor and then something happens and I go to the fourth. Well, let me catch myself and climb back up. No. I mean, it's a starting point, sure, but the real goal is to make sure that you keep proactively climbing from the fifth to the sixth to the seventh, so you never really drop below the fifth, so that by the time something unpleasant happens or something challenging happens, you've built up your reserves, you've built up your muscle, you've built up evidence, self-trust, right? Empowering beliefs and empowering thought patterns. You've already built that up within yourself. You're prepared, right? You have to be proactive. This is why in our programs, all of our programs, the first module is mindset. Nobody ever says to us, I need better mindset, but we know that without it, not much else is possible. Not much else will happen without the belief that you can, right? So again, the goal isn't, let me just, wait till I get to the fourth and then climb back up. No, you have to proactively every single day be feeding your mindset with the right things, with the right nutrients, so that you are formidable, you are ready. When you talk to that recruiter or you talk to that colleague who gives you this information, you can think clearly. You can think clearly. You can not make rash decisions based on poor data, right? Would you even, think about even if we just bring this to like your work, Okay. If you were running an experiment or you were designing a survey and there were hundreds of thousands of people in the population for the survey, and then you only got 2 people to respond, would you just say, well, those 2 people have spoken, so now I'm going to redesign my entire solution around those 2 people? You wouldn't do that. You'd get fired. If that was your job, if you were an insights leader or a data leader for the organization, and you went in and presented to your C-suite, hey, we had a population of 100,000. We only got 2 people. We waited till we had 2 people. 2 people responded as soon as we posted the survey. The first 30 seconds, we got 2 responses, and this is what they said, so this is what we're going to do. You'd be laughed out of the building. Why are you doing that to yourself? Right? You have to think clearly. You have to ask yourself, what's the data? What's the data source? What's this person's, bias from how they're looking at this? Right? What's the recruiter's bias? Is the recruiter going to tell you, oh, you really should be aiming for $500,000? Or are they going to try to tell you something that widens the pool for them, right? That lowers your expectations, right? Is the person who's also competing for the SVP role just like you are and has had very little success, is that person going to tell you, yes, there are plenty of roles out there, you should actually go for it? Or are they going to tell you something different? I'm not claiming to know, but I'm saying you have to not be sloppy, right? In your thinking, you have to evaluate the source of the data. You have to think clearly as you're making these decisions. And many of you aren't. You are, shooting from the hip, and you are being emotional. You are being emotional where you really should be clear, decisive. This is your career that we're talking about. This is your life. You have these skills, you use them in your work. Why aren't you using them for yourself? So important. So again, the goal isn't to wait until you've dropped to the 4th or the 3rd. It's to keep climbing proactively, even when you're on the 5th. Keep going to the 6th, to the 7th, to the 8th, till you are in the clouds. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to be. Okay? It doesn't mean that you don't ever change course. It doesn't mean that you don't say, okay, I'm going to do this instead of what I initially thought. It doesn't mean that you don't refine your goal or get more precise or more high resolution on your goals. Absolutely, you can. Right? But what is making that decision? What is the motivation behind that? What is driving that decision? For many of you, it's fear. It's scarcity. It's what you heard somebody else say casually with no data source. People will tell me all the time, oh, Stella, there's no jobs, and I'm like, have you seen my LinkedIn? All I'm doing is congratulating people. I just got promoted to this role. I just got promoted. I just landed this job. I just did this. I just did that. That's all I'm doing. So what are you talking about? Of course there are roles. Of course the roles are there, and you just need the one. You don't need 50,000 jobs. You need the one. So go get it. Go get it. Right? So your job is to build stronger evidence so that you have a deeper sense of self-trust. A deeper sense of self-trust. You are a seasoned leader by this point, right? You've amassed what you need to know to trust yourself. You've amassed that, but you're not using it. You're letting in all the noise. Today somebody says this, you do this, and then you come back the other way, you go the other way. You're always just, today you want to do this title, then you don't want to do it anymore. Today you want to be in the C-suite, then something happens, now you don't want to be in the C-suite anymore. Maybe you should just downgrade. You are just ping-ponging, vacillating all over the place. Wasting your time is really what you're doing. You're wasting your time because you are sloppy in the way that you're thinking. Okay? And here's the bottom line. Here's my bottom line. At a certain level, and for many of you, you are already at that level, senior director, VP, C-suite. At a certain level, it's not about your ability, your talent, or even your network. It's not whether you can do it. You can. Like I always, tell our clients tongue in cheek, I always say, if I were scrolling on LinkedIn and I saw a job posting for astrophysicist, I would just keep first of all, it wouldn't even find me. I wouldn't see the job posting for astrophysicist. It wouldn't find me, right? Because there's no part of me that desires that. And if I did happen to accidentally make the wrong turn on LinkedIn and I saw that, I would scroll quickly because I probably can't do that job. I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't keep thinking like, oh, let me look what else there. No, the reason you are already desiring it, the reason that you are digging deeper into it, the reason you're investigating it, the reason you keep reading the job descriptions, the reason you want to see how many of those bullets you have is because you can do it. It's because you can. Right? It's because you can. So the ability is not the question. The talent is not the question. The network, it's many of you, yes, you may need to build your network, but that's not the thing. That's not the thing that stands in your way. Because even if you had the network, even if you had hundreds of thousands of C-suite leaders ready to hire today, you would likely sabotage it if you don't watch out for sloppy thinking. So again, it's not your ability, it's not your talent, and it's not your network. It's really about whether you believe you can. It's that simple. Do you believe that you can? And here's why, because whatever you believe, you are correct. Whatever you believe, you're going to act accordingly. If you believe you can, you will act accordingly. If you believe you can, you will rise up in the face of all of the challenges. We've had clients who worked so hard only to get a lowball offer, right? Only to get an offer, like to have a bait and switch, not even a lowball. Like they were doing all the right things. They had all the right conversations. Last minute, the company switched the number, right? Most other people will be like, oh, well, let me just accept that, or let me just take a break or whatever. Kept going and landed something better. On the other hand, if you don't believe that you can, at the first sight of challenge, at the first sight of pressure, at the first sight of discomfort, you will fold. So whatever you believe, you will act accordingly, and your actions will prove you right. I hope that you found this insightful, helpful, provocative in the right way, got you to think about, how you've been operating, what you've been thinking, what's been happening between your ears, right? What's been driving the show in your career and in your life? This is the most important work for you to be doing. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.